Chess is a game that tests our emotions day in and day out. And within that game, there exists a rule. And that rule tests our emotions like no other, and it is called Stalemate. Today, we're going to be looking at 3 famous stalemates from history, and then looking at a whole game where none other than the legend Vishy Anand saved a losing position with an amazing stalemating idea. This is position 1, played by Alexei Troitsky versus, we're going to call him V, because I don't know how to pronounce that. So it's played in the 1800s. It is minus 13, minus 22 if you let the engine run. And this game was a draw in 3 moves. Black played the move bishop to h3, threatening queen g2, checkmate in 1. Find the saving sequence. By process of elimination, you might have found move 1. Rook takes d8. Makes some sense. But I'm impressed if you found move 2. Did you? The only move, queen d1. You might be like, what? Queen d1? I mean, okay, if the king moves, I pick up a queen. But that's never going to happen. What about if queen takes? This is a stalemate. See, many people understand stalemate as when you only have a king and there's no moves and you're not in check, that's a stalemate. Most people are familiar with that because it's the most common one. But it can happen even in a middle game. Look how many pieces are on the board. But can the knight move? No, it's pinned. The king is trapping the rook, so neither of those pieces could move because of the bishop. This f-pawn is pinned. The point of this deflection was that this bishop is now pinned to the king, and all of the pawns are frozen. So even though there's so many pieces on the board, none can move. There are no checks. This is a stalemate. White must have felt pretty good about himself after this. You know, sometimes you're on the good end of a stalemate, and you're like, this is the best rule ever. Sometimes you're on the bad end of it, and it's like when you record a video and don't turn your microphone on, not like that just happened to me, but you're just like, why does this rule exist? You know, why is this a thing? This is just dumb rule. But that's number 1. What should Black have done? He should have gone rook takes g3. The point is the f-pawn is pinned. After h takes, the f-pawn is still pinned. Can you believe it? It's not unpinned. Queen takes g3. I don't know why, I don't know. Queen takes g3, this f-pawn is still pinned. And then the king would have to move, and bishop to h3 check just puts the game away. Either you get rook takes and there's a mate in 12, trust me, or king to e2, or don't, and there's a mate in 3. Queen g4, king can't move anywhere, pawn f3, queen g2, bishop f2, queen takes f2, check, and mate. So that's position number 1. Amazing. Now we're at position number 2. We have Karl Schlechter with the black pieces versus Mikhail Chigorin, very famous player from the past. Chigorin is winning this game due to structure, due to activity, due to 2 passed pawns on the queen side. However, in this position, he went queen to b6 check, thinking he was winning, and drew the game. The point is, okay, in a pawn endgame, yes, you are winning. Absolutely, I agree. The king has moves, you have 2 passed pawns, you're going to win. But what he missed is the move king to a8. If Chigorin takes the queen now, it's a stalemate. Black cannot move any pawns. Black cannot move his king. Bad for business. So you might be like, okay, but I mean, I'll just move my queen away. No, you can't. It's pinned. And if you move the king away, you lose the queen. So the only move is king up. Find the only drawing move here. Queen c8. The point is, if queen b7, that's not checkmate. That just loses a queen. The only other legal move, king to a5, and you just go back and forth between pin and check, and the game is drawn. What Chigorin had to do was play the move pawn to b6. Play it slow. Karl had no checks. You just improve. You win over time. Push your pawns one by one. Avoid any checks. Give some checks. Win the game. He stepped on the gas too little or too fast and was not able to convert. Now we get number 3. We have Larry Evans with the white pieces, Samuel Reshevsky with the black pieces. You know, I always wonder how good Samuel Reshevsky is, because you hear his name, but whenever you hear his name, he's just always on the losing end. I'm pretty sure he was very good, but yeah, I don't know how good. But it sucks because you're so good at chess, and then you're just remembered for all of your losses. Maybe that's just me, though. I'm uneducated. I can't speak, and I stutter. So who am I? Nobody. But in this game, oh boy, bear with me, guys. We're warming up. In this game, black only has one way to continue winning. And that way is queen to g6. Okay, it attacks the rook. The knight can't get taken because of the mate, and the pawn can still be pushed. Makes some sense. But instead, we get queen takes g3, and now there is a draw that Larry Evans did indeed find. None of the pawns can move. The king cannot move. So what do? You have a queen and a rook that you need to get rid of, but you need to get rid of one before the other. You have to get rid of the queen first, whether you put it on h8 or g8. The king takes, and then you have to give up the rook. Right? If queen takes or king takes, you have no legal moves. That is a stalemate by default. If king to f8, don't take the queen, you're still down material. You just have a bivy. Is that a word? A bivy of checks until they take, and it is still stalemate. Pretty cool stuff. I just want to show real quick, it doesn't work if you take the pawn on g7 with the rook, because after queen takes, queen g8, that is not forced to take. King h8, now there's no mate as there was previous, and you escape. The second you take the queen, white has legal moves, not a stalemate by definition. All right, for those that stuck around, get ready for this banger of a game. It's played by Vishy Anand with the white pieces. First Indian GM ever. Put Indy on the map. Bunch of rising stars. He's probably like my sons. Thank you for continuing our legacy of awesomeness. Personally, my favorite up-and-coming star is Pragdananda. I just think he's a genius above the rest. It's just my opinion. Versus Alexei Dreyev. And let's get into it. We get a French defense. e4, e6, d4, d5. Count it, the French. And we get the classical variation, pinning the knight to the queen. Pawn takes, knight takes. We don't like pins. GMs also don't like pins, so bishop to e7. Okay. What do you take back with? Either is okay, but he takes back with the pawn. The argument is there's the open G file. The argument is without them being isolated, it is not a bad doubled pawn structure. The king is quite safe in the center. Those are his ideas. So we get knight to f3, we get some development. All right, the light squared bishop is known as the bad piece in the French defense. So he goes b6 either to fianchetto it or put it on a6. We get bishop to d3, bishop to b7, fianchetto, queen e2, bat array, and pawn c6. Pawn c6 is, that's quite a move, right? Do you ever fianchetto and then push your pawn to blockade it? I hope not. But the point is, keep in mind, white did lose his dark squared bishop, so f4 is a focal square, whether black claims it with the knight or whether he wants to put his queen on c7 since that bishop can't come to f4. He wants to do the latter. I still wouldn't have played pawn c6, but that's the idea. That's the argument. He's like, maybe I'll castle queenside. Vishy's like, are you sure? I'm going to push pawns there. That might deter you. Deter it? He did. Deter him? He did. Pawn a5, blockading on the flank. We got a pawn chain. We got a knight route. French and Caro are really similar. I don't like that because I like the French and I don't like the Caro. But a knight on f8, they say no mate. That's in the Caro though. Here it's more used as an aggressor because the French defense is for tanks. The Caro is for something. Pawn to b4, a flank attack. Okay, it wasn't the best move, but, you know, it's an understandable move. You could route. He wanted white to go knight g3 because it didn't want f5 to come with tempo. f5 came with tempo, and then h5 becomes, and there's a good flank attack here. So who would you rather have here? Don't look at the bar. Don't look at the bar. Who would you rather have? I think it's fair to say either side, but I think most people would say black due to just the nature of the flank attack. In this position, something to note here that would have been cool is knight takes f5, sacrificing the knight for two pawns, opening up the king that is stuck in the center of the board. That would have been quite interesting. Something to delve into if you want to review this game. But that didn't happen. Instead, we get ba5, rook a5. That's a good rook lift, right? Rook on the 5th. And here we get pawn on to c4. The hanging pawns in the center of the board. We discussed it in yesterday's video. If you're one of the best, they're good. If you're not one of the best, they can be horrendous for your position. You don't want to trade because in the endgame, it's a weakness. They're very good when they're close together, right? That's one reason very good players are good with it is they're patient with their pawn moves. A lot of people are like, attack, I want to make a queen. That's not how chess works. You're just going to create holes and you're going to lose them both. To each their own, but that's the argument for hanging pawns in the center of the board. All right, then we got king f8. There's a Caro con line with king f8 that absolutely dismantles me. Very good players played against me. I got to look over that because it's like some like king f8. It's like knight a6, knight c. some weird stuff, dude. And king f8 is a crazy move. I have a lot of respect for it over time. Okay, bishop to f1, retreating move, opening up the connection to the d pawn, and bishop f6, pinning the pawn. It wanted black to go h4, and here it calls this a mistake due to white being able to play h4. You might be like, that makes zero sense. I kind of agree with you. Kind of. But see, the point of this move is it slows down black's flank attack. And tempi in chess is everything. It's absolutely everything. So it buys you time to improve your position, and you opens up the third that your rook can now claim. So they are a little bit slow. I think the more tangible approach to why h4 wasn't played, I think why Vishy was deterred from it, is the move pawn to c5. This is what I think. Because the bishop on f6 pins the pawn, that you can easily see. But the computer finds something amazing here. Pawn to d5. Closing the light squared bishop. Giving up one rook, so you give up a whole exchange and you're just fine. You're chilling. Because this pawn structure, very bad. These rooks, arguably very bad. This bishop, not the greatest. And you're going to just have a passer down the middle of the board and the king is weak. So it's equal, but the more you look at it, the more you like. I would play white here, genuinely. The more I look at it, the more I like it, rather. And I would still play white. My position stands on that. So that would have been very cool. Instead, we got rook a3. Again, Dreyev a little slow. He plays king g7. Will Vishy play h4 now? No, he goes rook b1, aiming at b6, tying down the queen to b6. Finally, Dreyev goes h4, but then he goes h3. See, humans ruin everything. You push, you let the position marinate, then you push. Then you sit, marinate, push. You don't push, push, push. That is why this is an inaccuracy. Yes, it induces a weakness that you can build on. See, to humans, this looks very good. But Vishy shouldn't have went g3 and, c5. There's a lot of pressure on this king over here. So he struck too fast, but he ended up getting rewarded for it. Pawn to d5, pawn takes. Now it just looks like white is hopelessly losing. Black has a passed c pawn. Okay, white does have a passed d pawn, but it's not so stable, not so strong. He defends it. If takes, that comes with check, right? Count it 1 and 2 check. So we get queen to c5, adding pressure. Rook to a2. It's a move. Knight to e7 is also a move. That's a lot more tangible because it aims at the pawn on d5, and then we get the doubling of the rooks. So that was why rook a2 was played. So this is like desperado. Vishy's cashing all in. What does he see here? Well, Dreyev could have traded rooks and just pressed on in the position, but he found the most accurate way forward, which grandmasters are typically good at. Red, he takes. That is a fork against both rooks. You might be like, yes, I'm losing a queen. Yes, you are. But then I'm picking up a rook aiming at the queen. Now, the queen has to save itself, and you want a rook. So you just won a bevy, right? Count it, bevy. Is that a word? I think it is. So we get knight to d4, aiming at the pawn. Queens and knights make very good checkmating patterns. You might be like, why did you not take the bishop? I'm just going to move the bishop, saving it. Well, then there's knight e6. Check, fork, pin. This was the other idea, and now white is winning a rook. And apparently the bar is equal because it's always equal, except when we play. And it's never equal. It oscillates back and forth and back and forth. By the way, send your games into the email. I keep forgetting to leave it in the description. I will do it today. Subscriber video tomorrow. Any games you want reviewed of your own. We get king to g6, all right? Kind of a strange move, but he doesn't want to get taken on f5, and we saw what happens otherwise. We get queen takes bishop finally. Bishop takes knight. All right, white's losing. Are you kidding me? Why is pawn f6 not winning anymore? That's crazy. It looks like a safe move. Dreyev had to find the move king h7, losing the knight, and then king g7. It's like you just triangulated against a queen, and the point is there's no more checks, and you're just going to connect the rooks, push the pawn, win the game. I don't know about you, but that doesn't look all too human to me. That doesn't look too good. So instead we get the move pawn f6, much more human. All right, Anand picks up the pawn. We get c3, which I'm not the biggest fan of because it just lets the bishop into the game. Then he chucks the pawn. But his idea is like, I'm just going to checkmate you. Vishy said otherwise, though. Brilliancy number 1. Bishop takes, pawn check. The point is after rook takes, there is a pin. And all of a sudden, is white winning? Well, no, because black responds with a brilliancy himself, rook to c1. Vishy takes because he has to. Now he saves his rook. There's a discovered attack. Right, this is a pretty crazy position. Vishy gets out of the pin, saves himself against rook takes h2. Things to note about this position are that, let's say you take all the pieces off the board except black's bishop and this h-pawn. That is a draw because this h-pawn is a flank pawn, and the promotion of the flank pawn, the color of the square, the promotion square, is opposite that of the bishop. So even if they're up 4 points of material, a bishop and a pawn, if the flank pawn's promotion square is the opposite color of the bishop, it's a draw. I had to really delve in there to make sure I was saying it right, but I was. I checked myself as I was speaking. We get rook takes queen, king takes, king g7. All right. Anand's like, I'm going to make a queen. Drev's like, no, you're not. I'm going to stop you. Then he just shuffles from h1 to g1. He's like, Drev, how are you going to make progress? Drev brings his king over to the queen side, trying to win the pawn, and Vishy strikes with pawn to g5. The point is, if takes, push, who's stopping this guy? No one. And this is a stalemate. So instead, we get a couple more moves. We get push, 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 push. Here, stopping the queen. Still makes the queen. The point is you're just losing the material. So you're just losing the material. And this is one of the clutchest saves that Vishy Anand had by stalemate. What is your guys' opinion on it? I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you as always for watching. I will see you tomorrow. Peace. Boom.